let's finish off these last couple ones. Let's do these last ones quick, okay? Let's do these last ones quick. Let's do moon F, okay? Moon F, let's do it. Spin it so moon F is at the top. Our page is getting upside down at this point, okay? Here we go. Just going to go through these ones a little quicker, okay? This time, again, we don't care about this stuff. Let me cover it up. We don't care about that part. Now the moon is still mostly light, but now there should be a sliver of darkness on the right-hand side. Mostly light on the face, but a sliver of dark on the right-hand side. There we go. And now, here's the thing. Now we're losing light, okay? And waxing meant growing. So is this one waxing? No. It's the opposite of waxing. We're now losing light. Does anybody know what we call a moon that is losing light? Yeah, it's called waning. W-A-N-I-N-G. So for the first half of the cycle, when our light was growing, these guys were waxing. On this half of the cycle, we're losing light. And so it's going to be called a waning something. Now, here we go. Is this a waning crescent or a waning gibbous? Remember, it's based on the lit up part. Is this going to be a waning crescent or a waning gibbous? Remember, base your name on the lit up part. Gibbous. Yes, it's a gibbous. Even though the dark part is shaped like a crescent, or a crescent, we don't name it based on the dark part. So, waning gibbous. So a good thing to remember is that on the day before and after the full moon, the moon is still swollen. So it's going to be a gibbous before and after that full moon, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. Moon G. Moon G is probably the most missed moon. People get the right amount of light, but they get overconfident. When you're doing Moon G, don't forget that you have to turn the page over. How much of Moon G should be lit up? How much of Moon G is lit up here? Half, right? It's half. Which half is lit up? The left side, okay? The left half of the moon is lit up. So if we draw it over here, again, this one would be a straight line. But this time it's the left half. A lot of people will get it right that it's half lit up, but they'll get the wrong side because they don't turn the page over and they just look down here and be like, oh, it's light on the right. But if you don't flip it over, you're not getting the Earth's point of view, okay? So, what's the name of this moon? Let's finish these up. What's the name of that moon right there? What's the name of that moon? Take a guess. Somebody actually, I think, may have already said it. I didn't quite see what they typed, though. This is the third quarter moon. Somebody said last quarter. I probably would want to call it the last quarter. If I were naming it, I'd call it the last quarter. Because it's super confusing that we call this the third quarter moon. Because there's no second quarter moon. Why do we call it the third quarter instead of the second quarter? Because again, it's the amount of orbit we went around. From here, the beginning of the cycle, that's your first quarter. That's the second quarter, which we also already called the full moon. And then this would be the third quarter. We've gone through 3/4 of a complete orbit. So 3/4 is third quarter, okay? And yeah, it's the last quarter moon, but we call it a third quarter, okay? So check it out. Third quarter. All right, one last moon to go through. One last moon to do. Let's do it. Moon H. And then after we do this, I have just a little bit more to talk about before we head out. So Moon H, again, don't care about this part. Get rid of it. This moon, I'll just go quick. This moon is mostly dark with a little bit of light on the left side. Mostly dark with a little bit of light on the left side. See how I covered up the part on the back of the moon's head with my pen here? That helps a lot of people, so try that out if you're having trouble. So Moon H, the final moon, needs to be mostly dark with a little bit of light on the left. So there's our moon. And what is this one called? What's this last moon going to be called? What's this last moon? Yeah, that's a waning crescent. Okay? That's a waning crescent. We good? That's a waning crescent. Why do we call it waning? Because it's still losing light. And it's called a crescent because the lit up part is shaped like a croissant. There we go. So that's all the moon phases, okay? That's all the phases of the moon. All right? Couple things I want to point out. When you look at your moon phases over here, when you draw them, they should make sense in order, okay? For example, we started with fully dark, and then we got light creeping in from the right side, and then that grew and grew and grew until it was halfway, and then it kept growing past halfway until it fully lit up the moon. See how this sort of makes like a little movie right here? And then, check it out, we got a little bit of dark creeping in from the right, and the dark got bigger and bigger, still on the right-hand side, until it got completely dark again. And then it just goes from here to that one, and then it repeats. Another important thing to point out is none of these are the same, okay? We have 8 different looking moons. If you look at all the moons and you have 2 that are the same, you know you did it wrong, right? Or at least one of them wrong. Some of them are the like mirror images of each other. Some of them are just the same thing but flipped, but that's still a different shape, okay? In other words, light on the right is different than light on the left, okay? So every one of them should be different. A lot of people struggle with waxing and waning. I would recommend that you don't worry about the names until you have all of them drawn. And then it's easier to figure out waxing and waning. If you were looking at this one by itself, without any of these moons around it, it's kind of hard to tell if it was growing or shrinking. But if you look at all the moons around it, you can tell, oh, this one has more light than the one before it. That means it's growing. That means it's waxing. And another example, if you look at this one over here, this one has less light than the one before it. So it had to shrink. So it's waning, okay? So if somebody said they missed Moon H, that's waning crescent, okay? Waning crescent because it is shrinking, so waning, and it's shaped like a crescent. The lit up part is shaped like a crescent, so crescent. I think there's one last thing I want to say. Let's just do a couple more examples of this. here's how a test question might go, okay? I mean, there could be a lot of different kinds of test questions from this, but here's how a possible test question could go. What time does the third quarter moon rise? What time does the third quarter moon rise? That could be what the test question is. And in that case, what you would do is you would get this figure out. Just get this figure out, right? Because remember, you can use this. You look on here and you're like, okay, down here it says that the third quarter moon is moon G, right? Third quarter moon is moon G. So then you turn it so that moon G is at the top and do right rise. When does this moon rise? Right rise. Midnight. Yeah, you guys got it. Good job. Good job. I'm going to ask test questions like that. Okay, here's another one. Let's say I asked, what time is the full moon at your zenith? What time is the full moon at your zenith? Well, I look down here and be like, oh, well, E is the full moon. So I'm going to turn it so the full moon is at the top. And remember, whatever time points to it, it's midnight again. It's midnight again. Okay? Let's do one more. What time does the waning gibbous set? What time does the waning gibbous set? Well, waning gibbous is F, so I'm going to turn it so that F is at the top. Right rise, if I was asking rise, I would say between 6 p.m. and midnight. So when does this one set? Give it a try. When does the waning gibbous set? You'll have to say between, because it's one of the diagonals. Left set. Left's over here. And that's between 6 a.m. and noon, so that's when that one will set. So I'll go ahead and tell you right now, there's gonna be like 3 to 5 questions just like that on the first test. So if you're able to use this figure properly, you should be able to get those. It's not something you have to memorize, right? Somebody said 9 a.m. One of the days, this froze with my hand on it. One of the 6 times that moon rises is probably 9 a.m., but it's going to be a bunch of different times between here and here. So the best you can say is between 6 a.m.